Well, they're distressed because they understand that the king is going to come and bring judgment upon the city, and they understand. Christian, of course, when we see him in my book, he's already at that place where he's lamenting over the fact that the king is going to come.
Yeah.
And Seeker is just finding out. He gets a hold of this book that Christian had, and he's all these things that Christian said. Well, oh, they're right in this book. Here they are. Right. We've rebelled against the king. He created us. We rebelled against him, and now he's going to come in judgment. And we need to flee this destruction. What do we do? So it is because they have a correct understanding of Scripture, that they're distressed because they don't know what to do now. They know they're sinners, but now what do we do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they encounter a whole bunch of different characters, many that we might find in Pilgrim's Progress, but others no doubt that you've introduced. But just to name a few names, we have Mr. Tolerance, Mr. Pragmatic, Seeker himself, the main character, and then Mr. Evangelist. What are the kind of the function of many of these different guys throughout the book in terms of using them as a foil, but also using them as dialogue partners for Seeker? Explain the process of selecting these people, and also just I guess the joy of imagining conversations with these different kinds of characters.
Well, of course, with Bunyan, he's using most of what he's doing as allegory,
right,
and allegorical tools.
And he tells you about the person right away,
right,
just in their name. He doesn't come up with names like Bill or Ted.
Right, or their excellent adventure.
Exactly.
And I'm doing the same thing. The difference, I'm also using a lot of allegory as far as the names, other things, other like a lot of times food is used. In Bunyan, it's very important, the food that's being used, that it represents something spiritual. And I do that in my book as well.
Yes.
With the difference really is that Bunyan, who keeps saying, don't pay attention to the story, I'm not doing that. I'm saying, yes, this world, journey through it with these characters. Enter in a this is a secondary world that I want you to enter into and learn from. Bunyan is saying, this is all allegorical. Don't worry about it. But we naturally enter into it. And so I think that because he was a good writer, I think it's also part of it is that Bunyan was such a good writer that it didn't take him long to create characters that were very personal, that we could relate to. And I also think that Bunyan had somebody in mind when he would write about certain characters.
Why do you think that?
Well, as a writer, you can't help it. And that doesn't mean that, there's several characters in my books that it's not necessarily I had one person in mind.
Sure.
But especially, Seeker himself is a composite of many people that I've met and talked to, and the arguments that they've given within Christianity about other religions, and other characters as well. I see them as okay, I know these people. They might not be a specific person, but they're a type of person.
Yeah.
And of course, as an author, Bunyan was definitely using Christian. He was Christian. That's who it was. It was an autobiographical work. There's a little bit of me in Seeker, but as an author, it's hard not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Evangelist shows up, he's Evangelist. He's there to bring the gospel. It's the same character from Bunyan's work. I'm using him. But then I bring in other characters that Bunyan might have mentioned that he didn't develop, that are just mentioned. But he gives you the name. And so if the name's already there, who is like Mr. Worldly Wiseman.
Yes. I love that guy. Not because I aspire to be him, but I appreciate the character.
He was a fun character. It's funny when as a writer, the story kind of develops itself, and the characters kind of develop. The characters will tell you what they want you to do, how they should be written.
Yeah.
And so Seeker, he's actually a lot nicer than I wanted him to be. He's much more likable than I wanted him to be. And yet, but once you say, okay, who is this character? And then, oh yeah, that's who he is. Then he's going to, you put him in a situation. Now, how is he going to react Well, it might not be the way that I originally envisioned that scene, but because of who he is as a character, as a person, he's going to react a certain way. And so while I'm trying to definitely let you understand who the character is by their name, I'm also letting the character kind of develop himself in the story.
Yeah. We also come into contact with some very terrifying people and different responses to such characters in the book from other characters. But one of them is Apollyon.
Yes.
And describe him and what's his function within the book and really the apologetic story.
Well, Apollyon in Bunyan's story, when Christian meets him, he is there to stop Christian. He rightly says that Christian was a subject of his kingdom, and he's fled that kingdom. Now, he's wrong in saying that Christian, as a subject of his kingdom, owes him allegiance, which of course Christian does not, because while he was a subject, he belongs to another kingdom now. Apollyon in Bunyan's story uses different arguments to try to convince Christian to turn back. He uses his sin, his failures along the Christian road, his obligation to Apollyon, his failure to his new king. When Seeker meets Apollyon in the same place, it's a very different interaction, because Apollyon is going to try to play on Seeker's concerns over these other religions. Are these other religions true? Why should we say Christianity is only true? Doesn't the king love enough to forgive all sin and save everyone? Every sinner. Can't the king save every sinner? And that's kind of a question that's brought up. And part of the reason why I took a different tact with their interaction was because, and C.S. Lewis, the Screwtape Letters, which is just a fantastic work.
It's brilliant.
He uses, or the Screwtape, Uncle Screwtape, is saying that we use different methods for different Christians to try to produce different results. So Apollyon, in meeting Christian, attacks him a certain way to try to make him to turn back, because that's going to be the best offense from Apollyon's standpoint, from the devil's standpoint, to try to destroy this Christian. And so when he meets Seeker, what are going to be the best tactics that he can use to try to destroy this Christian? And it's very different, but it should help us as Christians understand that we wonder, how come that person doesn't struggle with X? Why do I struggle with this, but they don't struggle with that? Well, it's because we're different people. We have different struggles, we have different strengths, and the devil is going to attack us differently, and always at the places that we're the most vulnerable.